Please go ahead. We are live now.
Welcome to the second session of ASSOCHAM National Council on Branding and Marketing. This session is on marketing in B2B businesses. And this webinar would cover experience-based insights and approaches to building reputation, building lasting customer relationship, and growing revenue through business to human marketing in B2B world. So we have expert as Shri Govindraj from Vodafone Idea Limited, who will be taking us through the presentation of around 30 to 35 to 40 minutes, and thereafter we can have a question and answer session of 10 minutes. We shall also be joining by Shri Thomas Varghese, Chairman of ASSOCHAM National Council on Branding and Marketing, and Dr. Sandeep Goyal, who is a co-chair of this Branding and Marketing Council. So without wasting any time, I would like to invite Shri Govindraj sir to share his presentation with all of you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Avinash. I hope I'm audible and visible as well.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. And I'm just taking a moment to put my slides up there. And Avinash, if you could just confirm that you're able to see the slides. Great. Good afternoon. And thank you, ASSOCHAM Branding and Marketing Council, for this opportunity. And I hope each one of you out there is safe and connected and hopefully vaccinated as well. Yes, I think like Avinash said, this session, I'm less of an expert and more of wanting to share what I've learned through my experiences in the B2B space. And I would like to call it the sharp-edged practical knowledge and blunt theoretical grounding. So no frameworks, but more of experiences and trying to exchange notes with some of the other practitioners out there in this forum. And a lot of what I'm sharing here could sound a little specific to technology and telecom sector, but I'm hoping some of you would take some inferences into your own sectors, however tech or tech driven they are. And the last 1 year has been a tremendous shift in what I used to know as a B2B marketing to what I'm really sharing with you. Right in the middle of the pandemic rather. We actually launched what we now call as a V, and in enterprise we call ourselves the V Business, one of the youngest telecom brands, all digitally and all virtually, something I didn't imagine a year and a half ago. But yeah, some of the new age thinking that is shaping the B2B marketing hopefully is all packaged into this, and I'm really looking forward to good Q&A session towards the last 10 minutes. That said, I was not a born B2B marketer. I come from the world of product development, product management. I've done a quasi business development. When I wanted to get into the marketing world, one of the questions I had was, what really is a B2B marketing? And one of the definitions that was given to me was, imagine that you are a stellar sales colleague and you want to meet a customer. By looking at your visiting card, the customer should already know enough about your company, should have enough trust in you as a colleague because you are representing a particular company or a brand, and the customer should open the door for you, right? That was the definition, and pretty much to me it looked like, if I can get a great visiting card, I think we'd have done great B2B marketing. But really, is it just that? In my clear perspective, the answer is no. It is much beyond that. And I would like to personally call it B2B marketing is about the 3 R's. And some of you who are football fans would know Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, and Rivaldo. That's for the way I would like each one of us to remember the 3 R's. And they're the ones who are responsible for taking Brazil to the pinnacle of the 2002 Football World Cup. The 3 R's in the B2B marketing, and I'm going to spend some time elaborating them as we go forward, are revenue, relationships, and reputation. Okay. Talking firstly about revenue, and I'm going to show some examples of some of these later. In enterprise and predominantly technology, and I'm sure it's relevant for even a government customer or an SMB or a large enterprise, the buying cycles are typically protracted. But the buying cycle, it all depends on when you are entering the buying cycle. If you're entering at a stage where the customer says, I am releasing a tender, or I'm actually got a request for proposal, we call it the RFP, I think you're too late in the game. The game actually is in the 60% of the decision on who gets called to participate or be engaged in a conversation is already taken well ahead in the buying cycle. And there are complexities of not just the buyer who is here. There is an influencer, there is a decision maker, then there are the actual users. So multiple personas, as you would like to call it, are at play when you talk about the B2B. And marketing in B2B is not just about brand, because that pretty much looks like you are a cost sink. And I think that was the world maybe many years ago, but it's no longer the world of today. You have a stake in the ground in driving revenue, in being an agent of growth. And if you look at the bottom three ones, demand generation obviously is something that tactically earns our salaries, and they are the revenue earning dollars that you put in. But that's more of a battle, I would say. The real war actually is building the brand. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And the second is the holy grail in any marketing, I think, is to reach the segment of one. And in B2B world, actually, you can really achieve that. And obviously not for the entire set of customers, but even if you have, let's say, top 100 or top 250 customers, can you bridge the traditional frictional boundaries between sales and marketing and become a team of one to do an integrated sales and marketing? And that in this world is typically called as ABM, which is account-based marketing. And third, I've taken some liberty to call it influencer marketing. But in the tech world, this is pretty exciting space, very niche space of what we call as an analyst engagement. Mind you, these buyers of CIOs or chief digital officers, some of them are chief marketing officers, when they want to buy, and in my example I can give you is a telecom product or a digital product. They do want to know which are the top 5 vendors in this market, which are the top 5 that should be there in the consideration set, and whom do they reach out to. And obviously they do their own research, they do their own probably consuming some of the content that we dish out there. One of the key intermediaries in this value chain is the technology analysts, and they are the ones who need to be engaged by us as a brand, by the company, to ensure that you are in their consideration set when they go and represent a market space or a technology space to the end customers. So that's to me is a like I said, I've taken some liberty to call it influencer marketing, but please feel free to replace it as analyst engagement and nothing else. And like I said, even the demand generation or the way we market here is definitely beyond the 4 P's of a product marketing or the 7 P's of service marketing. And like I promise, I'm not going to bore with those frameworks. And definitely it goes beyond the 3-letter acronyms of GTM or a CPC and a CPM. So this demand generation is really about that the campaigns that you want to do or you typically do in B2B is about either creating an awareness for a category probably that doesn't exist, or you're not known to be in the category, or you're just there to kind of take their mind share closer to their buying cycles. And typically in B2B, the buying cycles are little well known. They vary by industry, but once you spend some time in the market, I think you get to know the science and art of it as well. Let me move to the second R. The second R, the closest and the heart of the marketing in B2B will stay to be brand. And that takes up maybe 60% of my time, ensuring the brand, the checks, elevating the brand, dialing it up, building it up from ground zero, especially in our case, when we moved away from 2 well-known brands of Vodafone and Idea to now what we call as a V business. But what I'm personally passionate about, and I definitely think marketing is the only, and there is no better function in the company than a marketing to own, is the ownership of customer experience. And in some companies, it is called as customer obsession. But for all our discussion, I think I would like to keep it as customer experience. It goes beyond the comms. Comms is surely one critical element. The digital experiences that you give, or the kind of engagement that you have for your products and services, right from the day you pitch to the right, even maybe to the moment where the customer is unfortunately terminating the relationship with you. In our experience today, we go through no less than 400 plus moments of truth in launching a B2B product. And that ownership and custodianship is with marketing today in B2B. And if you really ask me, I think this is one place where the boundaries between a B2B and B2C are getting blurred. Avinash, I saw some mention that the audio is blurred. Am I just wanted to double check the audio, please? Am I
Your
clear?
audio is clear. Maybe there is some network connection at their end, because here
Okay.
audio is perfectly fine.
All right. Yeah, just do flag it to me in case you think there is a audio glitch. Yeah.
Definitely. And those who are having issue, I would request them just to log out and then log in again.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. And I'll talk a little bit about customer experience in a couple of slides later. And the last one, which is one I'm personally passionate about in B2B, is you get to meet customers. And it's not to say that the scale is less, the scale is equally big and complex. But we did a research on what really drives relationships. And I think when I spoke to this gentleman called Sanjay Panigrahi, some of you might know. He's the one I really get inspired by. He's ex chief commercial officer, customer officer from Pidilite, and they prefer to call it the customer bonding, quite imaginably because they are Pidilite. But when we did a market research on startups, SMEs, large enterprise, even the government and the PSUs, the question we asked them is, what really, where do you spend time? What do you do beyond work? And at work, what do you consider as your priorities when, especially when you're evaluating partners? And what is the best form of engaging with you? And while I'll spare the rest of it, what I'm going to spend time in sharing with you is what really is the best form of engagement that came out in our research. It turns out that I think there are three key pillars of engagement, and this is pretty much true for if you're a startup founder to a conglomerate CEO, is passion. They do want to be engaged beyond personal and professional spaces because they're pretty much stretched on both. They have passions. The passions are, and the passion should not come in the way of their family life or the weekend time. So how do you market in that context? That's one challenge number one, when especially when you're trying to build relationships and helping sales both deepen and widen it. Second is thought leadership. So it's easier to say that yes, we'll have tons of white papers and engaging infographics, but are there other personal and more human ways to engage their and appeal to their intellectual curiosity or appeal to their thought leadership vision that they carry? And the third, all of us, even at our levels or at senior levels, want to commit to social contracts that is goes beyond personal and professional duties that we have. I think ESG as a philosophy is gaining more consciousness, and I think a lot of these the CXOs or the senior level colleagues and leaders would want to give back something to the society, and hence, can you curate something from a marketing as a way to keep the engagement alive and deepen the relationships? So before I go into deep in each of these three topics, and I know that I might be speaking to many colleagues and marketing leaders and CMOs who are probably leading many direct to consumer businesses. But I do have some myths to break, and I thought I will try and address them. Myth number one, and it comes across probably when you are working in a true B2B company or a true B2C company, trying to really understand what really is the difference between a B2B marketing and B2C. And I today have in a vantage point of working in a company which has both the brands, both a direct to consumer, no less than 260 million direct customers and close to 7.5 million enterprise users and customers. So when I look at it, actually, I think, yes, there are differences, and no, there are no differences. If you look at the chart here, I think these are the priorities from what Salesforce carves out every year. And Salesforce is one of the exciting B2B brands that I personally love. And some of you who have time must look at their Lonely Night Christmas video. Very pleasant and something that breaks the clutter in a B2B branding. The priorities, as you can see, I think on this chart are really nothing much to point about. But what really to me are the differences is about who you communicate to, how you communicate. Do you communicate more benefits in the product, or do you communicate more value in the product? Uh, and even the style of communications would vary. There end the differences, in my view. Where the convergence really happening is simply because of one key factor, and that is actually what I call it as a crossover of experiences from a B2C to B2B. And let me try and give you an example. If you are buying today on Amazon, I think all of us are pretty much used to a kind of a typical e-commerce buying experience. If you're buying a product or even a service, what if the customers in B2B are coming closer to expecting the same when they buy an office connectivity, or when they want to buy a collaboration product from us, or when they want to simply buy an Internet of Things technology service from us. That's what I call as a consumerization of B2B, because the experiences that you have as an individual, and none of us are in that sense dual personalities. We are one personality trying to do a different role, but that crossover is what actually is converging the worlds of B2B and B2C. And I think I'm pretty pleased to see, try and see if I can share some of the refreshing examples in this session. Second myth is B2B is largely below the line. I think D2C is largely above the line. I'm sure this probably is much easier myth to break. We have enough examples and experiences where print was a friendly medium, outdoor was a friendly medium for B2B, especially when you're tackling a dry subject like, let's say, Internet of Things. How do you really bring the excitement alive? And I think here is one attempt we did it back in 2017, where we said your cars will talk to you, or your parking lots will tell you where the next parking lot is. And thanks to machine to machine or Internet of Things. And I'm sure some of you are reading the press these days. I think Google is out there in the market, and they are quite clearly leading what I call as a customer advocacy. They are marketing through the customer testimonials that you see on the right hand side of the slide. So, and for many discussions in the marketing world, I think digital has come to be a clear ATL. ATL does not necessarily only mean outdoor and TV and press. If you're running a campaign on a Facebook or an Instagram or a LinkedIn or an India Mart or an Amazon Business, that's to me is definitely an ATL. So that's the second one I thought I'll share right up front. And the third one I think is, and I often end up answering this question to myself. I think there's a lot of exciting stuff happening in B2C, mixed reality. Can I try all of this in enterprise? Obviously, you got to be a little sensible in seeing what really works in enterprise. It looks like less exciting, less on budgets, low on scale. But I really don't think so, because having seen the brand launch or having seen some of the industry peers like Salesforce or Google or any of the other leading tech companies, I think it is equally fascinating and exciting. Let me see if I can bring up a video, and I need to, I guess, do a technical shift. But let me just give you an intro of this, and I'll leave the video to you to watch for a minute. It is about, I think some of you might know Motley Crue, the drummer Tommy Lee, and he's been used as the so to say the brand ambassador for an email marketing service. Let me try and play it for you. So yeah, and if any of you are facing any, not able to hear the sound, just please let me know. I'm just trying to play it here now.
Hi, honey. Who's running the marketing emails for the tour next year?
Yeah. So I hope you really could hear that. I'm now
Yes,
switching
sir.
back to the slides. Just give me a moment. Yeah, and we are back. The second one, I think this is, some of you might have seen, I think it's again a clutter breaking to me, is Google attempting to kind of bring a refreshing take on their cloud business. And they come up with something called as GCP Comics. And I'm just going to leave this slide with you for 10 seconds. And I think there's a lot more topics that they do, like encryption, defense management, etc. Yeah, I hope that probably convinces some of you that the world of B2B and the dry technology, seemingly looking dry technologies like cloud or security or IoT, you can really bring it alive to the life. Yeah. Coming to the, let me now switch to the 3 Rs. And if some of you just want to remember that, I think just remember these three key players: Ronaldo, Rivaldo, and Ronaldinho. So driving growth and taking a stake in the revenue is one of the examples that I would like to share. Is about how do you really drive the account-based marketing. And that's where I kind of wanted to share that it's actually you achieve the holy grail of segment of one or marketing to one. And I'm just going to give an example, and the slide might look a little dry. An example that in my experience in hindsight, I can share it because I think it's many years ago that I did this, is Tata, as you know, is a conglomerate with multiple and diversified business interests. And trying to open the doors for the sales guy across their 20, 30, 40 different industries it's not impossible, but it does take time. Is there a better collaboration between marketing and sales that you can make that happen a bit like a magic? Is when we actually build together a program called try to get them the 11 businesses. We couldn't achieve all the 30, 40, but it is 11 businesses that we were targeting. We got them into a kind of a light evening event in Mumbai St. Regis on 37th floor. And we engaged with them on what does the technologies like the emerging technologies of communication and the digital really can do to their businesses. Now, imagine you do one such thing, and obviously that goes well into the sales calendar. And obviously you got to keep in mind that the customer has their own buying calendars. They have their fiscal calendar. Attached to that is their buying calendars, their business priorities, right? So how do you really weave yourself into the sales world through account-based marketing? One is example is workshops. Second could be an account engagement or a senior level executive engagement. Then run a specific newsletter if you care about doing that for them. Essentially, you're talking about stripping the marketing budgets and dividing them to, if I have top 100 accounts, I'm going to divide and allocate some monies for these top 100 accounts, because at the end, they might be your 80-20 Pareto, giving 80% of your revenues. So it's worth doing it. In our experience, we kind of did something similar with Mahindra, where what to me is a pleasant surprise in doing all of this is, I think, is one, you obviously want to sell your point of view, but the customer is equally encouraging, and they would actually practically encourage you to come and join some of their forums where they want you to exchange your best practices. For example, one of the practices that I ended up sharing was how do you really service 200, 300 million customers? There must be some best practices in the telecom world, which probably should cross-pollinate into the other world. These are nothing to do with sales or committing to any funnel or engaging in a particular opportunity. So these really go a long way in actually building and widening the relationships that you want for your sales colleagues. And the third example, I think, is when we were doing with one of the customers, and I can't name them here, is we were talking to the digital chief and who was working with the CEO, and they said, can you lend your training module on Internet of Things to our folks? Because we really want to get started. We have manufacturing businesses, we have many other businesses that really want to leverage the technologies like IoT. So the answer is like, why not? I think at the end, if it makes sense to the brands as the two brands, and obviously it helps sales, why not? So that's one example of how you can, and I think some of these I do take targets. The targets are in the form of a number of workshops that I can personally do. Obviously the challenge in these initiatives is scale. So just be caution on that, but it really works like a magic. So, and it's as human as it can get in the B2B marketing. Like I said, the favorite for me is the relationships part, and I'll come to the reputation in a while. So passion, like I said, I think a lot of the CXOs do want to not be, always met in the boardroom. So how do you, and at the same time, they don't want to commit to a, your offsite where they come and engage with you on what is the opportunities between us. So what we did for many years, without fail, I think we did for about close to 12 years in succession now, is some of the CEOs have a passion for golf, and we do an annual event of golf. Um, what it really brings alive is when you're on the greens, you don't talk business, you don't talk shop, but you're talking about the game. And can you weave your products into the game? For example, I think we have tried to weave technologies like communication into the game. So how do you connected technologies? For example, in the golf, some of you who are probably familiar with the game of golf, it's a very technical game. And a technology like analysis of the swing, or analysis of your play, and comparing yourselves with you know with other players in the fray is very very personal, and it's a very competitive sport. And if you can weave your technology into that, I think there's nothing better than this. So personal experience, I think pick golf. It's slightly expensive game, I must say, but if you want to pick any other sport, cricket or any other sport, I think equally works well to break the ice, and some of those expressions are worth to be seen on the greens. The second, and in fact, this to me is the highest form of customer engagement that is really possible. Very personal, very intimate, appeals to the CXOs and the CEOs of the board, where you onboard them as your advisory board. And all these programs have to be owned by marketing. And because these objectives of these programs are not to increase the service NPS or sell a product. Nowhere is a sell factor a key driver of whom you select into these advisory board. Many companies do. I know that many companies do have their own advisory boards, but multiple purposes for which you can build advisory boards. You might want to make them as early adopters of your products. Some of them you genuinely want to break new markets and open new markets. And how do you really get the rainmakers from those adjacent spaces to come and advise you on what you should do and how you can go about bringing standards and policies into the market. And one of the advisory boards we have run quite successfully is for Automotive Industry Council, where the conversations are so rich. We were talking about Formula One, because I think the best form of technology deployment in any sport, into my mind, is Formula One car. Millions of sensors, gigs and gigs of data over a weekend of a race, and the decision making is split second. So you can't get more real time than this sport, in my view. From all the way there to how do you use technology for electric vehicles, go green, commercial vehicles, passenger vehicles. And I think there you find the interesting intersections between industries. And you are automotive, I'm a telecom, and let's say, for example, you are a financial sector player. Is there a triage or a data monetization that is possible? Because you're bringing the intersection and made possible by the data that gets generated. So conversations like these, I don't think are possible when you are across discussing a sales opportunity. These require a different form of engagement. And if any of you ever have to convince any of your senior boards or advisory boards do work, I'm happy to share some experiences and white papers around it. The third one is executive engagement. Lot of the companies, I think they call it sponsorship programs or C-suite programs, where you map your CEO to their CEO, etc., and you try to get the ice broken, and then let's hopefully mutual opportunities come aboard. But in my experience, what really works is, and this is an example of the workshop, and again, I'm sharing these slides in confidence, workshop that I did with ABP, Anand Bazar Patrika. And the venue is so fascinating. It's really not the boring boardrooms. This is actually right next to the Eden Garden, and it's the club there. And the discussions were largely about, I think, how Saurav Ganguly was actually used to dine at the same place that we were having lunch. But yes, the serious conversations were largely about, because that's a media company, right? And media and telecom typically talk consumers, and can we grow the share of voice, mind share, market share? Again, interesting possibilities. And as you can see, some of the leadership team, and not just Mr. Purkaista who was there, but his leadership team was there as well. So a traditional sales method of trying to get a sales engine or a sales conversations may not work at times. But if you can kind of maneuver this to have a thought leadership engagement at a C level, and I think a lot of doors do get open. The third one, in fact, this is something that kind of I've experienced it, and this is one of the things which is very heartwarming is the care aspect. And I'm sure many of you have much better examples than what I'm quoting here. Is I think we took an occasion like World Environment Day, and this is Mahindra, and Mr. Kannan is a business head as Mahindra, and the left is the next leader that I used to work in Vodafone Idea. So and Glide was a new hybrid car that was launched, and it is a hybrid car, and it's definitely is better than the fuel-based cars. So both multiple leaders at both Mahindra and Vodafone Idea were taking pledge and trying to egg each other in a form of an ice bucket challenge on the LinkedIn. So one challenges the other, another challenges the next colleague, and it was, don't quote me on what numbers, but I think what really worked pleasant was for us about getting the leaders together between the two brands and the two companies. And these are two big brands that are trying to take pledges, and a pledge is really a commitment that you make to the society. So there are multiple forms of care engagement, like working on themes like inclusivity or education, child education. I think you can pick many themes in which you can probably bridge and innovate and create new vehicles for engagement with your customers and partners. Yeah. This is the, like I said, brand remains the heart of B2B marketing. But before I go there, let me share some views on customer experience. So today, I think marketing, like I said, has to own this. And I've seen a lot of, when I say customer experience, a lot of people equate it to customer service and simple comms. But today, I think in some of the experiments or experiences that I've gained over the last 6 months, especially in the virtual world, we do what we call as a customer connect day, and maybe some practices in the retail markets as well, where you storm the market. In B2B world, meeting 25,000 customers in a single working day across all, even if you are a corporate person not facing customer ever, can you go and have a conversation with a customer and understand their pain or their gain or what is really working for them in the pandemic, right? So just have a heart to heart conversation, no sale again. Now that goes a long way, because one, you are kind of reinforcing the relationship that you have, and second, I think you are pretty much achieving the consistent messaging between all your colleagues who are engaging with those 20-30,000 customers. So that to me is equally good example of customer experiences which is beyond digital. So that's one thing that really is working well for us. In terms of brand, I think let me try and see if I can share another refreshing video. And I don't know him so well, but here is a UK comedian and writer whom we have used in Vodafone UK, is Stephen Mangan. And again, another right technology which can be made more exciting. Let me see if I can play that for you. Yeah, so this world is equally becoming more glamorous, and I think there are a lot of other, as I try to pull up back my slides, other interesting engagements on podcasts, especially with celebrities that really work well in B2B. Yep. And this is something that I think I've evolved as a point of view, especially during the pandemic. And I'm sharing some of the research of Bain and McKinsey out here. And how do you really communicate in a B2B world? Because you're not communicating with a business. At the end, you're communicating with a CXO or a proprietor or a founder. So essentially, one principle that we have to ingrain in the programs or in the communication or the brand experience that we curate, just try to kind of remind ourselves that we actually, at the end of the day, we are communicating with humans. And actually, in the virtual world, it has made little difficult to be high touch, because in B2B, you always want to be high touch, meet them, engage with them, have a lunch or a drink with them. But in a virtual world, the high touch gives way to digital touch. I don't like to call it low touch, but let's stay with digital touch. So I think what really matters here in a subtle way when you are working with your sales or service and as a custodians of brand is how does this come across when you're having a conversation in a virtual? How do you be more empathetic? Respecting time is equally a sign of empathy in my view. Have real conversations because you're not here to kind of sell because I think the times have changed and I think there is enough imperative for customers to adopt digital. So you don't have to kind of do a hard sell there. But again, sound a bit more caring and both in your conversation and in your communication as well. So I think I've seen some dramatic shift in the way we communicate or the way we take the campaigns out, um, especially after the pandemic. And last thing is in terms of when you want to communicate in B2B world, I think you obviously want to segment your propositions are segmented, your comms will be segmented, but can you build some science into it? And this world is like a very unstructured world because if I go and ask which are the biggest B2B publications that my CXOs read, the answer from our agencies is sorry, I don't know. So we did commission our own research a couple of years ago, and we really wanted to understand what does the CFO read. At the end of the day, that's where the monies are coming from. What does a CIO read? Where do they read? How much do they read? Which social channels do they consume more over the others? Are they more on Twitter or are they less on LinkedIn? So one of the key examples I think is I find many analysts on Twitter, many CXOs on LinkedIn, right? So and Twitter is more of a care forum and LinkedIn is more of thought leadership forum. So some of those nuances, obviously, some of us know, but can you build a science into this? And this is easier said than done because the data from a structured world of what customer is buying from you, when they buy, how much they buy, has got to be married with unstructured data of what do they like to consume, what is their opinion on let's say on an electric. If you're going to meet a commercial vehicle head, what is their viewpoint on electric? So can you actually garner some of that information, which is probably in the deep web or in the wide web, and try to bring it all together in your communication and engagement? So that's probably I would say is the second part of the holy grail. I think the quest is how do you get there? And in the world where the cookies are broken and you are largely depending on first party data, it's all the more difficult. But I would say it's much more better than relying on a second or a third party data. So like I said, the last part of the holy grail for me is given that the marketing is a custodian, is a growth driver, is the one who can probably as a function can control the best customer experience. Definitely a seat at the board is what CMOs definitely need. And I think that's my ardent desire. Some companies do recognize it. Many companies are still to recognize it. And I wish that all of us are recognized for what the marketing, B2B marketing or marketing at large can do. As I try and draw close to my presentation, but these are some of the topics I'm personally passionate about. If some of you out there are equally excited about these topics, and I'm going to share my LinkedIn profile on the chat window in a minute. But these are some of the topics that I do like to research upon, work upon. And my personal one amongst these is Gemba, where I'm not sure some of you are fans of Dr. House series, but nothing like visiting customer, understanding the pain, both from, of course, one from a product development point of view, second from communication point of view as well, or the brand and the engagement point of view. So let's be out there at the workplaces where it matters the most. And in closing, I think companies do have strong purpose. Brands are built on purpose. And to me, being in the B2B marketing world, the purpose is about being obsessed with customers, not just with communication, brand, but also with experience and engagement and relationships. And hopefully all of this will end up developing the deep customer bonds that we all want to aspire for. When you do all of this, I'm sure some of the metrics like the brand tracks and NPS, I have no doubt that I think they'll definitely keep you at the top. So with that, I would like to draw my session to a closure, and I see Mr. Thomas there, but I'm available for about, I'm not sure how much time we have, Avinash, but maybe 5-7 minutes of chat. And I'm just going to take my slides off.
you very much, sir. May I request some comments from Thomas, sir, on this B2B market?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. I actually could not hear Govind very well, but thank you so much, Govind, for being with us and taking us through a very enlightening session. I missed the first 20-25 minutes, so my apologies. I think there was an overlap of Avinash, and I did not realize that. And thank you so much. I think some of the examples given by Govind are very, very relevant in today's world, even from a B2B point of view. And how we can harness technology, how we can use what is available to us in the current situation we are in, which is a pandemic hit world, to still work towards very effective B2B marketing, to look at branding programs, to look at what is relevant. And as Govind said, very important that we must understand what is the purpose of each organization we are dealing with, so that we can really connect and engage with them at a very different level, at a more seminal level, I would say. And very, very interesting, examples he has given. And I think would be very, very useful to all the people who are interested in how to be more effective as a marketeer and as a brander in a B2B space. So thank you again, Govind, for being with us and for actually offering to do this session for us. Thank you again very much. And, we just hope that all these efforts will also help Vodafone Idea to progress ahead. So really, I would say that Avinash, you should leave the floor open for question and answers so that Govind can actually go deep into any specific questions which requires a little more clarity and a little more context than what he's been able to provide in the formal presentation. So thank you, Govind, again, and thanks to everyone who's been on this call. And my apologies again for not being there at the outset. Thank you.
No, thanks so much, Thomas G. I think I'm just wondering if the audio glitch was also there for others, in which case probably definitely I think we can try and share the slides. I'd have to sanitize a little, but I can.
I can barely hear you, Govind. So I don't know whether that was true for the others or there's something wrong with my system. Because on the phone, I can hear you very clearly, but on the laptop, I couldn't hear you. I don't know why. Anyway, I guess people have heard you. So I
maybe
okay, I hope that.
Please do check whether, could you hear him clearly?
Yes, sir.
Then there must be a problem with my. So I think I've seen one on the chat box saying it was perfectly audible. So great. So Govind, you can still share the slides with Avinash, who can share it with all the people with interest.
Definitely. I'm going to share that maybe by the evening, so should not be a problem.
We have also been joined by our co-chairman of this council, Dr. Sandeep Goyal. He's also joined. So participants, please feel free to ask the question. Just raise your hand and then I will unmute you. Then you can ask the question. So one question is there in the chat box from Mr. Raghav.
Yeah. Hi, Raghav. I think the question is about what's the impact of consumerization of B2B branding? Would this trend influence pure play B2B companies to offer consumer products too? Okay, let me try and address that. I think would they change the product portfolio basis that? I think it's more strategic call, because if you are like the Googles or the technology companies, I think you'd already have two distinct product portfolios of what you sell to you and me as a consumers and what they sell to, let's say, an education institute or any other conglomerate or any other company. So I don't think that's what will drive why you want to do a different products. I think the different products are driven by the philosophy of what's the market opportunity, competitive landscape, and etc. So what really is the impact of the consumerization, I think, is let me tell you a couple of examples on where I see the impact. I think the impact is when you are building a product experience in a B2B. And let me just give you an example. Since if I'm come to your institute and say, hey, buy the connectivity from me, and I'm going to wire up all your building. And yes, I do it. And at some day you want to have your own, let's say the entire institute wants to have a big virtual show, and you want a more bandwidth. I'm just giving a technical example. And how do you do that today? You got to call me, my account manager, and say, hey, I need another 10 Mbps, is just an example. The experience today you have when you are actually as a consumer is that you just do Swiggy. I need another top up, I need another extra pow, right? That experience here is equal to saying, okay, at the click of the app or a button, I just want to buy an additional bandwidth, or I want 100 more connections, or I want 50 more licenses of what you gave me as a Google Meet licenses or Google Workspace licenses. The buying experience is definitely fundamentally changing. Second thing that is changing is, I think, is a lot of these customers, and I think Amazon has a great philosophy. I'm not sure if they still have, is what they call as the best service is no service. It's called a BSINS. You really don't want a customer to call you or mail you or see a relationship manager to tell the problem. So by then, I think a lot of time is lost. So they want like instantaneous response, and their experience is real digital, real time. And obviously when you have multiple contexts like an email or a contact center, they want that context to be aware when you are actually addressing it. So again, there, click of the button, like you don't call Uber call center. Can you bring those experiences into the B2B world? Today, it's not there, by the way. It's like I said, it's like a wish list. I want to be there where customers don't call me. So I'm just giving you two examples of from a selling point of view and from a service point of view, the experiences that you have as a consumer, those expectations are coming into the B2B. And today, if you don't have it, I think probably you are number 2 or number 3, and the guy who has it probably is considered better. So technology no longer is a differentiator. All of us have equal democratic opportunity to adopt it, but the experiences that you can build, and that custodianship, to my mind, is marketing, is where probably differentiates today. I hope I kind of addressed it, Raghav.
Any other questions from the participants? So if there are no other questions, then can I request our co-chairman, Dr. Sandeep Goyal, to give the concluding remarks? Sir, kindly unmute yourself, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's been a wonderful presentation. Thank you very much. To be very honest with you, this is a kind of subject that is not easy to tackle. I mean, B2B marketing still remains an area which has far fewer experts than B2C, because B2C is something we all do day in, day out. So, we are much more familiar. So thank you very much for a really super presentation. I am looking forward to that deck more than anybody else, because there is really a gold mine of information in that deck. And I think we should have many more of these sessions. Avinash, thank you again, Chairman Thomas Verghese, for providing the leadership for this entire series. And as we go forward, I'm sure There are going to be more and more interesting areas and issues that we are going to cover. Thank you everyone for your participation and for being here to join us on this ASSOCHAM event. Thank you again. Thank you enough for all the support, and everybody have a great weekend ahead.
Thank you, Sandeep ji. And I personally would like to thank Avinash and Krishan, who have been tireless in their support. Thank you, and thanks everyone. Thank you, Thomas ji.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Just
Bye-bye.
would like to inform you that we have 2 more sessions in the next month, October, and September, and we shall be sharing the details with the participants shortly. Thank you very much. So look forward to having
Thank you.
in those sessions. Thank you. Could you please end this event?
Are there any more questions, Avinash?
No, there were no questions. Only one question was asked. So
Okay.
yes, sir.
So thank you. I presume the call is over.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your support.